Okay, so welcome to the last session of the day, the lightning talks. The way this works is we have a series of, I think, 11 talks, ranging from 1 or 2 minutes and 1 or 2 slides to most of them like 7, 8 minutes and one longer talk. Since this is a packed session, we won't have questions after each talk, and instead we'll just switch over to the next speaker, so questions can be asked later. Okay? So since I'm already here, I'll go first. My name is Eran Gilad. I'm a researcher at Yahoo Research and a co-organizer and co-founder of Haifa C++, and a co-organizer of this conference. And what I'll talk about today is how C/C++ is very similar to Java/JavaScript. So what got me motivated to prepare this talk is some random blog post I came across which says 5 reasons why you should keep learning C/C++. So at first I was happy to see that, but then it occurred to me that what exactly should people be learning? What is C/C++? So a brief history of the two languages. The first one was talking about only standard versions. C started at 1990 with the major language features. Then C++ first version was in 1998, and it covered most of C and added object-oriented programming, the standard library, templates, exceptions, etc. Then C99 was a major milestone, adding variable length arrays in line with a slightly similar semantics from C++, a native Boolean. Variables could now be declared within code blocks, variadic macros, comments, and so on. C++, on the other hand, on 2003 was just a bug fix, not much more. Then another milestone in 2011, C added multi-threading support and the generic keyword, which is a weird way of writing generic macros or overloading in C. And C++, that same year, introduced the same memory model, as well as a ton of new features, lambda, context per null pointer, and so on. Then C++ 14 and 17 followed with a ton of new features that continued getting away from the C origins. And lastly, C 18, which was introduced last year, is just a bunch of bug fixes. So, given those histories of the two languages, what's left in common? Well, row pointers, row loop, manual memory management, macros, hash include, all of those things that modern C++ is actually trying to get away from. So if we have someone in mind that's trying to go from being a C++ programmer to being a C programmer, what that person has to face, well, a bit of unfamiliar syntax. Probably have to learn a lot of libraries because the C standard library is much smaller. Less safety features, some poor man's encapsulation using static, and macros. Going the other way around, a C programmer trying to become a C++ programmer, well, that person has some useful knowledge, such as pointers, which were unfortunately deprecated on April 1st by a few bloggers. Manual memory management, we try to avoid that using smart pointers, RAI, and such. Atomics and low-level memory model. Well, it exists in C++, but it's not the kind of parallelism you would like to use, unless you're an expert. And fine-grained control over memory layout and so forth. Those are the useful pieces of knowledge. What's missing for that C programmer trying to move to C++ is object-oriented programming, templates, standard libraries, lambdas, moves, constructors, and a ton of new features that keep on pouring into the language. So just to clarify, I'm not trying to demote C programmers or the C language. I'm just trying to emphasize the difference between the two languages. So this talk is basically a call for action. If a C programmer that tries to move to C++ arguably doesn't know much more than a Java programmer trying to move to C++. Can a C programmer become a C++ programmer? Well, of course, but it's not out of the box, and same somewhat applies on the other way around. Now, if you spot a C/C++ silliness, please call it out. It's not doing just to C programmers, no to C++. Now, again, just to be clear, the term C/C++ does make sense in some occasions, such as tools. Okay, a C/C++ compiler, that's somewhat sensible, but this term is usually used in the context of job offerings and resumes, and in this context, it's just meaningless. And of course, Java/JavaScript is also meaningless. The only relation between the two languages is some legacy branding and a slightly similar syntax. And these days, this is mostly the relation between C and C++. So to sum up, with the words of Bjarne Stroustrup, there is no language called C/C++. The phrase is usually used by people who don't have a clue about programming. And I'll stop here. Thank you.